Hey, I'm not sure if you know about this, but I was a speaker and a trainer for Google for nearly 6 years. In addition to this, I've been a coach through a lot of my career, helping small business owners and entrepreneurs improve their businesses. But now with ADHD, I've learned a lot about helping other wise squirrels like me. Check out the link at wisesquirrels.com/coaching and book a free session with me to see if I can help you. I have a feeling I can. Welcome to Wise Squirrels, the podcast for late diagnosed adults with ADHD. I'm your host, Dave Delaney. You know, a lot of the time on this podcast, I speak with ADHD coaches, physicians with PhDs, people that study ADHD and research it. Now, one thing I love to do also is shine a light on successful people with ADHD, people that have really done well, very well in their careers. For example, I spoke with the former director of the International Space Station for NASA for 16 years. We didn't speak for 16 years. He did the role for 16 years and was later diagnosed with ADHD at 60. That's Dr. Bob Dempsey, if you haven't heard that episode. Today, I'm speaking with Tracie Campbell. Tracie is the genius behind the brand Brooklyn Charm. What's cool is that Tracie started with an Etsy store and grew and grew and grew to brick and mortar locations in Brooklyn, New York, of course, Manhattan, Venice Beach, California, and Ventura, California. She's a true success story in every way, and she's a ADHDer like us. So I'm very excited about sharing this interview with you today. We speak about going from Etsy to a brick and mortar success. We talk about the ADHD advantage and some of the challenges. We spoke about people pleasing and the cost of caring when it comes to pleasing people and where some of that might come from. Tracie shares how Brooklyn Charm went viral and attracted major brand collaborations. She spoke of the reality of scaling a business, a small business with ADHD, some of the challenges that she had to overcome, plus the unique advantages and challenges, as I said, of ADHD hyperfocus, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. We spoke about balancing creativity with the demands of leadership and operations for a business, and also how to turn a personal challenge into a source of connection with customers. This is a really fun, inspiring conversation, and one that I'm excited for you to tune into. Do you ever listen to Wise Squirrels and you're like, I have a comment, I have a question, I want to hear my voice on the show? Well, there's an easy way to do that, you know. Visit wisesquirrels.com/comments and you can record a comment and I'll include it in an upcoming episode. I look forward to hearing from you and sharing your voice with our fellow Wise Squirrels. A quick moment to thank our sponsor, Inflow. If you're dealing with ADHD, you know it's not just about focus. It's the emotional roller coasters, the forgotten tasks, and the shame that builds up because of that. That's why I love what Inflow is doing, especially with their new tool, Quinn. Quinn is an in-app AI companion that helps you through those tough emotional moments, stuff like rejection sensitivity, burnout, or spiraling thoughts. Quinn's there with validation and small, doable steps that actually help. It's been described as a diary that talks back. And honestly, that's pretty accurate. Hop on over to wisesquirrels.com/inflow and check out Quinn in the Inflow app. Give it a whirl and let me know what you think. I'd love your feedback. And we thank Inflow for their sponsorship of Wise Squirrels. And speaking of sponsorships, I'm always interested in exploring new partnerships with you. So if you are interested in sponsoring Wise Squirrels, just go to wisesquirrels.com/sponsor for details. And now, if you've been thinking about starting a small business, perhaps you already have one, this interview is going to be very inspiring.
My name's Tracie Campbell. I own a jewelry company based here in California, and we have one in New York as well, in Brooklyn. So we specialize in customized jewelry at an affordable price point, and I have been doing that business concept as Brooklyn Charm for the last 15 years, but I have been making jewelry for 25 years or so, long time. So
That's awesome. Yeah. I was reading that you started jewelry making at 15 years old. Did you ever think to like look back at that and just go like, oh, wow, that was maybe the ADHD energy that helped you kind of hyper focus on creating jewelry and things?
absolutely. It is the ultimate hyper focus that I have. Oh,
Yeah.
like maybe sometimes over even like parenting my child, probably.
Well, it's great though. I mean, I think, we all have to find, different ways to channel who we are. And, if we can do that into our businesses or our jobs, at least, to have good sound careers, I think, that's a great thing. And yeah, tell me about the business a little bit, because you've had incredible success. Tell me about some of those successes.
Well, when I opened my store in Brooklyn in Williamsburg in 2010, I would say that it was like the peak hipster era of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And so that was like when Williamsburg was still kind of like cool, is the best way that I can put it. And so I like to think that I was like one of those fun, cool stores that opened up during that time. I mean, we had like a gallery down the street, like, dog supply place, Japanese market. I was just off the main drag, so I wasn't paying high rent like some of our neighbors were. So I feel like I lived in New York City and opened my business during like a really special time in history in New York, and it was coming off the curtails of the '08 crash. And I was in an industry that again was like affordable, right? So maybe fine jewelry, luxury brands, all these companies that were like focused on like big ticket money items. I was, pushing a product that even if someone was broke or lost their job, like just put that on the credit card and we'll pay that off later,
Yeah, yeah. And you've done cool collaborations and things with like Forbes and Broadway and Chicago, the show Chicago. What else? Like Urban Outfitters, Color Pop Cosmetics.
Yeah, we're doing something with a French luxury brand here coming up. And I mean, a lot of those opportunities came up, through the business going viral. But even before all the viral stuff, we were in Manhattan too, in Chelsea Market for a long time. And that place was crazy because it's just one of the highest foot traffic tourist areas in New York City. And so that opened a lot of doors for us when we were, again, like in the early 2010s, that we had a partnership with a Japanese company that opened several Brooklyn Charms throughout Japan. Those are no longer around, but you can thank COVID for that.
Yeah.
And then even in Denmark, we had one at Denmark one point. That one fizzled out only because the owner's husband was like a famous musician out there. So I think they just kind of,
Yeah.
on that. But yeah, I mean, that was what was amazing about New York. And I think why I moved out there was because I just saw the potential for myself more so than I saw it here in Southern California, even though I'm back. I left a Californian and I came back a New Yorker, like for sure.
Yeah. And how long have you been back? What part of Southern California are you in?
I'm in Ventura County. So my shop that I have here in California is in Ventura, but I live in Oxnard now, which is where I'm born and raised. So.
Okay. Nice. I'll tell my son to pop in. He and his girlfriend are doing a road trip to LA from Nashville in a few weeks. So
Nashville is actually like, I've never been there, but I think about like if I were to open my business in another state, like Nashville is on like the top of my list. Obviously I have to visit there first, but I could see myself being like semi-retired life in Nashville if I don't stay by the beach,
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's Yeah, Nashville's a great city, and it's definitely doing quite well given the economy and sort of the state of things. Nashville's kind of doing quite well. So, yeah, I'm from Toronto originally, so I've been in Nashville for nearly 18 years now, almost
Oh,
18
wow.
years.
Well,
So,
very cool. Well, I'll definitely reach out to you, Link, if we go
yeah,
out the way. I have a friend who has a shop out there, Any Old Iron, and he sells a lot of clothing or loans a lot of clothing, both to like celebrities and musicians and stuff like that. So,
that's cool.
yeah. So it's fun to see kind of like his success and him grow in that industry as well. So.
So tell me, and if I don't have the note in front of me, like how old were you when you were diagnosed with ADHD or
I'm not
ADD, right?
ADHD,
Or were you?
ADD first, and then ADHD came later.
Yeah.
I'm early diagnosis. So I was diagnosed in third grade, and they started me on Ritalin. I was very hyperactive my whole life. All my cousins would always call me a brat, but like in an enduring way.
Yeah.
And I didn't get enough tension, right, for like a kid like that. So I think I kind of drove some of my teachers crazy, and that was when they were like, okay, we need to like figure this one out.
Right.
I had a little trauma in my second grade with a second grade teacher and just through my childhood too. So I think sometimes that kind of stuff, exacerbates, the way that you are,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and yeah, I was on the ADD stuff up until junior high, and I wasn't on it for a couple years in high school, but then I was like falling off really bad, and they put me back on it my senior year, and it helped and it didn't help because when I was a senior, they were coming out with new stuff other than Ritalin. So Adderall was still fairly new to the market. Strattera, Dexatrin. I don't know if I'm saying these correctly, but it's been over 20 years since I've taken them, but these were things that they were giving me. And it didn't set well with me, actually. When that happened, the Ritalin was the only one that ever really truly helped me. But funny enough, when I hit 22 and really decided what my field was going to be, jewelry, I quit cold turkey on the ADD stuff, drugs. And I've never looked back. I mean, I also had jaw problems and sleep problems. I do truly believe that stuff helps people because again, I know ADD and ADHD when I see it. And it just got to a point where it was no longer serving me,
Yeah. And that's fair. That totally makes sense. I mean, it's definitely, different strokes for different folks. And certainly, everything that I've read and, I always say on this show, it's like a drinking game. And at this point you can take a drink when I say that I'm not a doctor and nor do I play one on the internet. Right.
Yeah.
But that said, yeah, I mean, I know stimulants work because I've experienced it myself, being late diagnosed. And I didn't have that eureka moment first of all, I started on stimulants that were prescribed by my doctor, my GP, when I was diagnosed. And there were some weird side effects, nothing terrible, but there were some things. And so he switched me to something else. And then we experimented with doses a little bit. And then he's like, you know what, this isn't my expertise. Let's get you to a therapist, like a psychiatrist who can actually help you manage your meds. And so with her, we tried, different, not a lot, but different things because it's first you try the thing and then you on a low level, on a low dose, and then you increase that dose. This is my experience, at least. You increase that dose until the point where it feels good, or if it's not working well, or you're getting side effects or whatever, you switch to a different medication and then start again and rinse and repeat. So, and I've found it to be. I mean, one of the interesting things that I always find, well, tragically hilarious, maybe, but how people are worried because they think they're addictive, and it's ask any ADHDer, they forget to take their meds all the time, or they forget their meds in general. They go away for a week and they forget their. So that's like, and if they were addicted, I can assure anyone that if you were addicted to something, there was no way you were going to forget to take anything, right? Smoking,
well, a true
drinking, whatever.
ADHD person doesn't look at it as something to be addictive,
Right.
I had a friend in college who wanted a pill, and I gave her one, and like she crunched it up and snorted it in front of me. And I was like, never again am I letting anyone have this. I was shocked. I'm like, I've been taking this stuff since I was in third grade. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And she's just like, it gets to me faster. And I'm like, this is not a party drug. Like, this is not.
No.
Yeah. And no, exactly. And it didn't work out very well with that roommate anyways. So
yeah, it sounds like it may not have. That would be my game. If I was a big gambling person, I would say,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but she she looked at it, she viewed it as a drug, and I did not. It was just, it was a different substance for me, and it was to help me with my own, productivity and coping mechanisms for things that triggered my ADHD. Like, and that's the thing too, is like, finding out what triggers that too, right? Like, because it's not like the ADHD is on all the time, like you have moments where you're totally feeling focused and have calmness, and and then all of a sudden, like, it comes out of nowhere, and it's like a rush of feeling it almost, and then it's like, wait, why can I not focus on anything right now?
Hey, this is Dr. George Sachs, co-founder of Inflow, a proud sponsor of Wise Squirrels. If you have ADHD, you know how tough it can be to stay on top of, mostly everything. That's why we created Inflow, an app designed by expert clinicians and people with ADHD to help you understand your brain, build habits that actually stick, and feel less alone in the process. Get the support you need with Inflow. Head to wisesquirrels.com/inflow to check it out.
And it's like, sometimes it's two noises going on at once, or hearing the bad news, or, so, there's so many. So
I find that does happen where well, this podcast is a great example, right? Like, I do it all myself. I edit the show myself. I do it all. I probably should outsource some of it, or get somebody to help me with some of this, but it's a labor of love. I mean, I love podcasting. I studied radio and television broadcasting. I've been podcasting 20 years, this October. This show's obviously new. It's only been around a couple of years since I was diagnosed, but I love the topic, and I love, my point to it though, is that like, with hyper focus, something, the kids call flow. Yeah. Everybody's, I'm trying to get to my flow state. And it's like, well, ADHDers have no problem with flow. The only problem is we start to flow into like, we fall down rabbit holes and get distracted by things that we maybe shouldn't be doing. Right. Not bad things necessarily, but just like, you think of a new design and then you're like, what is the name of that color? Or what is, and is that color a popular color this year? And look at the different Pantone codes or colors. And
I'm always working at like 5 projects at once when I'm like in
that's
my
common
mode too. So when I'm at work, I have staff and employees, and they always joke around that I leave like a path of destruction, when I'm working on everything. But then again, I'll be the opposite. I'll come in and they leave a path of destruction, and I'm sitting there cleaning up after all of them. And I can't even get to the thing that I want to do because I cannot do it until that stuff is cleaned up,
Yeah.
And then I end up doing other people's work, and that's okay. But, I can do both.
Yeah. Well, but one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you so much too is, I speak to a lot of medical professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on, and also just like, ADHD coaches and things. And I wanted to speak to more sort of air quotes high achievers with ADHD to kind of learn from them about not necessarily like about working not around, but working with your ADHD. It's part of who you are. It's your neurotype. And I mean, you've been aware of it at least, most of your life, which helps. You also bring some insights from that awareness and self-knowledge, I'm sure. So maybe putting ADHD on hold for a second or letting it in as you like, but how does one start a business that is successful as yours, with or without ADHD? I mean, you started in 2010, right? You said
the
did you
store,
start with a storefront?
Open. Yeah, the retail store open. I started my business in 2007, just like doing online and e-commerce,
Like Etsy or something, or web?
Yeah, actually, I kind of like people of the eBay days.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was at the birth of Etsy. I was there at the very beginning stages, and so I found a niche for myself quite quickly. And as a jewelry maker, it was hard to sell my jewelry on there because 75% of the people on Etsy and at that time were jewelry makers either. So I was like going on there trying to sell my own jewelry to the same people who was like, I'm not going to buy jewelry from people I'm, making jewelry competitive with.
Sure.
And so they were letting jewelry supplies on, and destash and crafting supplies on, and vintage on there. And so, I love shopping, and I used to work at Michael's for a long time, and had like a, crafting supply background. And so I started, buying wholesale bulk jewelry supplies at like closeout places. So like I was putting things up there that you literally couldn't get at Michael's or any craft store. And it just took off immediately. I got really lucky. In fact, I remember I stayed up till 4:00 in the morning, like another ADD lifestyle, sometimes just staying up all night. And I listed 20 things on the website on Etsy. And I woke up in the morning and they were all gone. And I thought Etsy shut me down. And I was like, oh, no, I spent all night working on it. And then I go and I look and everything was sold. So like from 4 a.m. till 12 p.m, everything I put up on the site was like, this was before you could put quantities and everything like that. Like I had made $75 while I was sleeping. And and it just kind of took off from there. I mean, honestly, I didn't know I was starting my own company. Like I came out of art school. And I was a little disappointed with my school in the sense, it was a great art program, but they didn't really set me up with the concept that I was going to be in business for myself as an artist. I just always thought like, you go to school, you do college, like you get a job, even as an artist, like I just imagine being an artist with a job, not being independent like that.
Right.
And so it was really liberating because I never really kept a job very well, other than working at Michael's and like this one and a bead store, but I had many jobs, many hats, hostess, waitress, bartender. My God, I was the worst waitress. I mean, retail, all of it. And so it was just, it was amazing. Like it just immediately, I was selling supplies like crazy. And I was like the number one or top 5 jewelry supplier on Etsy for the first few years of their existence until it got super saturated, and that kind of got me going with, and that was like, I wasn't really making or creating or being an artist. I was more curating, right? Like picking out like charms and chains and beads and findings that I was drawn to. And that's like what I on Etsy, and trying to also have something that like nobody else had, or I don't want to compete with people, like I want to have something unique. So that was like the root of the early success.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Did you have like, it's funny actually, I set up an Etsy store when my daughter was like I think 11 or 12. And her and her friend were making all this slime all the time. Like during that craze, they were making tons of homemade slime. And so I taught them, like I managed it all for them, but I created an Etsy store and we sold the slime. We shipped it to Switzerland, even. And it wasn't my brother who lives there. It was someone stranger bought it. And so we were like selling slime online. And yeah, it was just such a cool thing because I wanted them to see sort of the opportunities out there with, you know, online businesses and entrepreneurship and things. Cause I think, yeah, obviously there's a lot to be had. Did you have like a mentor, parents, like who, a family member, like who was it that, or was it just you reading books and thinking, okay, if I do this or this, or?
I mean, I had help along the way for sure. I mean, my parents, you know, helped me with start. In fact, I borrowed like $200 from my mom and went and bought all the supplies and was able to pay her back immediately. And then my husband, now he was my boyfriend at the time. He's my business partner basically. And he's been, you know, there with me all through the way and incredibly supportive. In fact, he's building out our register for the Venice Beach location as we speak. So
amazing.
You know, I'm not a good reader because again, ADD, like reading is tough for me. I don't even necessarily have the attention span for podcasts either because my brain just goes off in other directions and then I'm like, wait, what did they just say? You know?
Yeah.
So I read a lot of magazines working at the craft stores, you know, and I'm very much self-taught in the like crafting jewelry area. And I went to art school and I did put an emphasis in metalsmithing. So, you know, I do have a more like formal education on silversmithing and metals and materials and all that stuff. So again, that was what was kind of neat. Like no mentor, just like a passion for something, you know, like my daughter even said the other day, she's like, Mom, you're obsessed, you know? And I'm like,
well, that's great though. I mean, you found your thing, which is, you know, I mean, a lot of people are still looking for theirs, right? And maybe you won't find it. Like a lot of people, you know, search through their lives. So it's fantastic that you did that. What about like opening a brick and mortar business? Because I mean, it's a hell of a lot easier to open an online store, especially with a platform like Etsy or eBay or whatever it is these days, marketplace or what have you. So, you know, at some point you're like, I need to sell this from a store, or how did that happen?
Yeah, you know, so selling online was good and all, right? But I hit a plateau and there was just a point where like for a couple of years living in New York City, I couldn't get my bank account over a certain amount. And it was just like stuck at $4,000 for like 2 or 3 years. And so I was like, what do I do to, you know, further this? And I was actually selling my own jewelry at a local artisan market on the weekends. That again, you're competing against so many other jewelry makers. So that was tough. And so I was like having this like, you know, small success with selling supplies online, breaking even, barely making it, selling my own jewelry designs. Because again, I was more avant-garde with my jewelry. So when I would make jewelry, I would make actually like stuff that people would put in magazines or use in fashion shows. And, you know, it's hard to push that stuff if you're not well connected. And so when I was doing the marketplaces, I was like, what if I put my charms out? Because people were always asking me, can I switch that charm, or can you shorten that chain, or can you? And I was always willing to do it because I wanted to make the sale. And I would notice that my fellow jewelry makers in the market, they were like, no, you buy it like this, you know, and not that they're, you know, because there's like an ego that comes with it, you know, and like, I like to think I don't really have that kind of ego. So I was totally willing to like alter this stuff in order to like make the sell. And I think that's like where the marriage came. It was like, well, let's take like my willingness to, you know, be flexible on the work that I put into it and give them the chance to kind of like dictate what they want in it. And actually the venue that I was doing it in, they wouldn't let me do it at first when I applied because they were like, oh, it exposes the like what it costs to make jewelry. They did not let me do it. And so I ended up doing it at another market, and that like the first day I did it at that other market, it was like instantly successful. Wow. And I was all by myself doing it. And it was so Mickey Mouse compared to the way that I do it now. Like I had spools of chain and I was like cutting them and like assembling them on site. And now everything's already pre-made, like the chain stuff and ready to go. But I definitely was like, you know, figuring that out in the beginning. And then as soon as I did well with the Brooklyn Flea location or the other location, Artisan Fleas, they kind of were like, all right, let's bring you in and do the concept.
Yeah.
And that again, kind of like doing Etsy, it instantly, became like an income for me. And like within a year of introducing the concept, that's when we opened the store.
What year was that you opened the store? Was that
2010.
2010? Okay.
Yeah. 20. And I wasn't really setting out to open a retail store. I wasn't really setting out to have that quote unquote business. I was just like pursuing this thing that I love doing, and one thing I really like pride myself in. One of my accomplishments in life is like when I moved to New York City, I did not have a job. I worked for myself. So I never actually worked for anyone.
Good for you. Wow.
When I was living in New York. So yeah.
That's amazing. Were there times when like whatever the circumstances just where you wanted to throw it all out and just quit? Like, have you,
that's like once a week.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a roller coaster entrepreneurship.
I get anxiety, like there's anxiety that comes with it. And I've always had anxiety since not always, but since I was like 16, 17, like I also have, dealt with that. And so, when the anxiety comes in and it can come out of nowhere. And again, like the triggers, right? There's triggers for that. And you just, it's like this overwhelming sensation. I mean, I have so much stuff, like so many beads and so many charms. And like, sometimes when I'm going through it all and I'm just like, I'll die before I ever get to see everything that I own, like I won't ever get to go through it all because it's just so much. And it just, So
it's amazing. I was going to say too, with the anxiety piece, I mean, that is a common comorbidity of ADHD as well as depression. Like those two are the most popular, my understanding. But there are others too, but with those and that, this is what I've learned because I have anxiety and some depression as well. So like, but what I've learned in this journey is that treating the ADHD is kind of the core. In fact, I just had a guest. I just published an interview with Dr. Alan Graham, and he talked about that too. We're like, if you don't treat the ADHD or you're not aware of it, especially for undiagnosed people, then you can keep treating the anxiety and depression all you like, but it's going to keep kind of coming back without treating the ADHD as well, or at least like teaching people about the ADHD, because that's one of the strange bedfellows that comes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
I know. Yeah. And I definitely went through that in high school, and I was seeing a therapist, and had depression, was on antidepressants. I had insomnia for 2 weeks. Actually, the insomnia came from one of the ADD drugs that was given to me. I want to say it was the Strattera one, but it was, I took it the first day. I was fine. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. Like, I don't really feel it. I just, that's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to feel the speedy part of it, and sometimes that would be, I'd, be clenching. And so that was like, oh, wow, day one, this is a relief from that. Cause I think I was on Adderall for a little bit before that. And then then day two came and I straight up did not sleep that night. And then I did not sleep for almost 2 weeks. Or if I did, I slept for like an hour at a time. And like, that's when the depression actually started, was like when you are up alone with yourself and your thoughts, and like, there's nothing that you can really do.
Were you talking to your doctor at the time
I had, because of ADHD, I had a pediatrician till I was 22 years old, and I had a great pediatrician actually. And he really, he was, like you said, you were trying different things and trying to find the right dosage and the right prescription for you. And so that was a journey in itself, was just trying to navigate what was, going into my system and how to deal with it. Ultimately, they ended up prescribing me Ambien. And I took an Ambien and I slept for a day and a half or something like
Sounds like
that.
they needed it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then when I woke up and I came out of it, I actually it reset me. It was really weird. And I
Mm.
was like, I was doing better, and therapy was really
Yeah.
helpful. So and again, like we kind of just wound up back at Ritalin at the end of it, because it really was the one that like was the least like, I had TMJ too. So like if I was clenching and that, like I didn't clench on Ritalin basically, or have trouble things. So
I have you got me thinking about, because I'm an entrepreneur too. So like, from running a business and sort of a DIY sort of mindset, which is kind of what I've always approached everything I do with, where there comes a point when you do have to start hiring or outsourcing or what have you. Tell me about like when did you realize I can't do this alone, or I can't get to where I need to get alone, or, oh my God, I'm not good at this. Cause that's one thing that I tell people all the time. That's one of the aha moments of my diagnosis and treatment is and practicing mindfulness and meditation, where I've realized like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not great at everything. And it wasn't that I was cocky and thought I was, but rather I was just moving a mile a minute unknowingly, that I just assumed. I didn't even assume, I just had to do everything. So there wasn't even time for me to stop and think, oh, that's why you're not doing a good job at X, because you're not good at X. You need help with this. Tell me about that experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I hired someone, this was before you could process shipping at home, right? So you actually had to go to the post office to have your stuff mailed.
Yeah.
And so I had just moved to Brooklyn. I was living in Bushwick at the time, very colorful neighborhood, very loud, somewhat scary post office. And I had a panic attack in there actually, because line was super duper long. I showed up with 30 packages. It took me 45 minutes to get to the front. And as soon as I got there and threw my 30 packages on the table, the two other windows closed, and it was just like me and this one guy, 30 packages, and 20 people behind me.
Yeah.
And they all just were like, like throwing their arms up in the air. And I like started getting tunnel vision, and my face went numb. And the post office guy was like, flicked his finger in front of my face, and he's like, hey, I'm right here. Just focus on this and stay with me. Like he saw me spiral, and he did. It brought me back, and he's like, someone's coming back in a minute. But in that situation, I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm hiring a New Yorker to come and wait in this line for me, because this is just like too stressful. Yeah. And so I did. I hired a young lady, Vern. She was 19 years old at the time. She's originally from Barbados, but lived in New York for, oh God, she'd kill me. Not Barbados, Trinidad.
Yeah.
Trinidad. And she stayed with me for over 10 years. Actually, she was my first employee, and she's still a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
So that was my first hire, and I didn't really hire again until I introduced the business concept of the charm jewelry thing. So like once I was doing the DIY, or like you design it, I did have to have some people help me with that, just because again, you can't be ringing people up and making stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
So you need someone to do the ringing up and someone to do the the making. And I only had a couple employees the first couple of years of being open, but then when I opened the brick and mortar store, I had to go from like 2 employees to 5 employees. And peak having my shop and my 2 locations in New York, I would have sometimes 16 employees at a time. And so, with that, you definitely need like good management to help with that. And I did, it takes time to get to that place and to find the right person, and not just the right person, but the person who's going to put up with you and your ADHD,
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a great, I still have the same person who runs everything in New York City that I've had for the last 10 plus years, and she's amazing, and allows for me to, be more permanent here. In fact, like after COVID, we closed everything down in New York for like a year and a half. And when we reopened, I licensed the brand to her. So
okay.
the woman, Adrian, who was the manager of my store when I wasn't in New York, she lost her job. Her whole career just like went into thin air when we closed the stores. And so, she saved up money and kind of went out and joined the Chelsea Market thing that we were doing before and started it on her own, but as Brooklyn Charm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. Like I have, she's technically like, a licensee, but, I look at her more as a partner just because, we make a lot of joint decisions together, and, because she's representing the brand Brooklyn in Brooklyn, I always say if it weren't for her, I don't even know if I would be Brooklyn Charm anymore, because, we weren't going to move back to New York. I'm like eternally grateful to have someone like Adrian in my life. And I always joke around, like, I hope I find my Adrian here in California.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of it, right? Because I was just having this conversation with someone just yesterday, actually, a small group, about outsourcing some work and realizing, like, part of what stopped me from doing that has been, well, first, I'm a perfectionist, so there's that. But besides that, for me, it's more like a need for someone to help me with my social media and help me with my, like, maybe some admin stuff and some, mainly digital stuff. But a lot of times, folks are, you don't know who is best for this. And there's a lot of online services and things where you can hire people. But like, I feel it's sort of like a CRM, setting up a CRM where, like, I don't want to, like, spend all this time teaching someone how to do everything and then they don't do a good job. And then I've got to rinse and repeat it all over again to find someone else. And all that time wasted and money wasted when I should have been doing it myself. Yeah.
I've been there for sure.
Tell me about, like, your strengths, as far as, obviously you're very creative and you're obviously a great, talented jeweler. But besides that, as far as, like, running a business goes, like, what are the areas that you're best at or weakest at, as far as, like, all these things? Because I guess you have to understand your strengths well enough on, there's a great book, the E-Myth Manifesto, or not manifesto, but E-Myth. It's mainly about, it's about entrepreneurship. And in it, I only remember this, like, it's a fictitious story in it, but it's like one that resonates with so many people, which is, and I've heard others share it. Lots of entrepreneurs say this, basically the same story, which is, woman loves baking cupcakes. She opens, starts selling cupcakes from her house. Then she starts, similar to what you're doing. And then she opens a bakery. And next thing she knows, like, she's so successful that she's suddenly managing people only, and the books and all that stuff. And she's so taxed with that and recruiting and replacing and all that stuff that she's lost her any time to actually bake and create the stuff that she's most passionate about. And so she's miserable because now all she's doing is managing people, which is, a great talent to have for some. But does that resonate with you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't particularly enjoy managing people. I'm not saying that I'm not good at it. It is probably the hardest part of the job, actually, is because you're the income, for these people, and you are responsible for their livelihood in a way, and not everybody holds that over you, but people certainly do, and I would say one of my greatest strengths is also my greatest weakness, which is, I want to be liked, and not just by my staff, by everyone, and if you want everyone to like you, then what can happen is you can get walked all over, and I'm an empath as well, so
Yeah.
Those are, great traits to have as a person and a business woman, but it can also be taken advantage of, and so I think that has been a struggle for me, because I don't feel like I'm the kind of person that takes advantage of people. It's never really been my trait. I will lean into people when I need help, and I will be open and honest about that, Again, like, I don't have too big of an ego to admit when I need help, but
Right. Yeah.
I think that especially with this newer generation too, we're like, now I'm the like kind of older, in the game, and I'm watching these younger, early 20 something year olds sort of step into the professional world. I see a lot of them, me and them, actually, just in terms of like not liking being told what to do, and or being told to do something they don't really feel like doing. And I have definitely been that person where I'm like, oh, you want me to do that,
Yeah,
and then
me too.
I see it done to me, and I'm like, why do you have to act like that, or so I'm always like, just, it's important for me, like when I task people or work with people, to just, be kind when I'm asking that. And maybe I'm not always kind. Maybe I'm a little bit blunt, because I'm in business mode, and I'm like when I go to work, I am there to work. I am not hang out. I am not there to socialize. Like, I will talk, I will, like, do any kind of conversation that most people do, but like, I am doing it while I'm working, and so that I expect out of, my staff as well, is like, if you're going to come to work, I don't care if you talk, but like, make sure you're staying productive while you talk,
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I find the people pleasing and empath sort of aspects intriguing. And I don't know, with any sort of science study, I like, what I do know is that, like the study, I think I think it's something to the effect of like a 10-year-old with ADHD or ADD, same difference these days, I guess. Same thing. It's just ADHD. It's a new name. But a 10-year-old with ADD or ADHD, whatever you want to call it, has received something like 20,000 negative feedback from like teachers and parents and, other adults, by the time they're 10 years old. So they've heard way more negative feedback. In addition, in our sort of, or I'm 53, but in my generation, at least, my parents were not diagnosed, but we do know that it's something like 75 or 80% chances, or that it's almost as heritable as height, meaning that like one or both of your parents quite likely has ADHD as well, if you do. So, but with undiagnosed and untreated ADHD, that can lead to, difficult people sometimes for whatever reasons, with, whether it's addictions or impulsivity or whatever. So therefore, and this is where, like, I don't know statistically or anything, but I feel like I do know that we Wise Squirrels or ADHDers do tend to experience more trauma as children.
Yeah.
And certainly I did as well. But I also think that this is the part where that my theory comes in, which I'm curious about. I have learned through therapy that I became a people pleaser in part because of the trauma that I had as a kid. And so that kind of made me realize that if David's a good boy and I'm pleasing everybody, then I'll get ahead. And I don't like drama. I don't like conflict. I'm a pacifist, all these things. And so, but it makes, and you were saying, and I'm very empathetic as well. So you were saying something similar there in a little while. And you made me think of it when you had this panic attack, where you have like 20, 30 people upset with you behind you, and you have this panic attack in a moment. And maybe as somebody who's you mentioned you're a people pleaser, maybe in that moment, the reason why you had that panic attack was because you want to please. You don't want people upset with you. And now you've got 20 or 30 of them. And that, to me, not being a psychologist or psychiatrist or doctor, would, I mean, just my spidey sense tells me that that would make sense to trigger such a.
No, I felt
thing.
bad for all of them because I just
did too.
went through
Yeah.
it myself, and now they're really in the ringer because they got one person with 30 packages. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was, and all the focus is on me, like
But
I,
yeah,
thank goodness, and like when I was a kid, I wanted to be like an actress, and early 90s, like Hollywood, there was like such a fantastical, like, thing about it. And I think back to it now and I'm like glad that never happened because I could never ever handle the the negative part of it, or the like the bad press or the, like like when I'm in trouble,
rejection.
it's like one of the worst feelings on the planet when when you feel like you're in trouble or you feel like you've upset someone. And I get serious, like debilitating anxiety when I feel like I'm in trouble, and therefore I hardly ever get in trouble.
Like, well played.
In high school, I would get in trouble in like a party way, and I never really felt bad about that. I mean, again, in trouble with hurting someone's feelings or upsetting them or like rubbing them the wrong way, even if you don't like the person. I don't even want the people I don't like to feel like a negative impact from me because I don't know their story. I don't know why they're acting like a jerk to me, like, so, I want to get along with everyone. It doesn't mean I do, and being a business owner and a boss, you're going to get people that are going to come in that are not going to agree with your style of management, and then you'll get people who do agree, and the people that do agree are usually the ones that stick around, and the ones that don't agree, they either drag you through hell for who knows how long until they quit or you have to fire them, or they don't last very long and they just like move on to the next thing. And
love it. Yeah. If you could design a charm, and I'm watching the time here, I know we're almost wrapping up, but if you could design a charm or jewelry that captures ADHD in a fun, empowering way, what would it look like?
God, it would probably be like a spiral within a bursting sun.
I love that. Whoa. You like didn't miss a beat there. Have you been thinking about this already? Or
no, you totally. I did not. I never thought about that. And I cannot believe I came up with that so quickly. But like, and the spiral is that like there's this, I don't know if you listen to Tool at all, but I'm like a big Tool fan.
Saw them at Lollapalooza in 1991.
Oh my God.
On the backstage.
I've seen them like 4 times in a perfect circle, but like, spiral out, spiraling, like third eye, just, because there's a spiraling out and then there's a finding your center as well. And there's been so many moments in my life where I feel like I'm going to explode, but I'm finding a way to sort of like circle back into my own thoughts that don't make me explode, so it's like you might be exploding on the outside, but it's because we're working on the inside trying. And that's, that goes back to why we interrupt people sometimes, or we, get lost track of our tasks and things like that. So it's just, it's constantly moving, it's like even today, this morning, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and I could not go back to sleep. And I was like thinking of a spiral. So
I wake up that way too. I'm like, it drives my wife crazy because I'll wake up like, hey, let's talk. She's like, yeah, leave me alone. I just woke up. I can't talk to you for at least an hour. And who can blame her? And then you said the sun, right? Or
like a burst or a spark or something that is just like, it doesn't have to be even like symmetrical, just there's an explosion happening, but there's an attempt at inner peace.
I love it. This has been so much fun, Tracie. How can people get a hold of you, learn more about what you do? Like, where's the best place for them to go?
Instagram and TikTok is, where we're very active through our Brooklyn Charm account. We also have a website where we do jewelry making supplies and customized charm jewelry online. So you can always, have something custom made on the internet. You don't have to be there in person to do it. I would say that we have the largest selection of charms of any custom charm bar you'll ever find online and in person.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing. It's amazing work. I mean, yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, this is honestly, it's been amazing. So very inspiring. So thanks, Tracie.
yeah, it's fun to talk to someone else who, has an understanding of how this neurodivergent brain works.
Thanks for tuning in to Wise Squirrels. Please make sure you follow the show so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed the show, leave a review, please, and visit wisesquirrels.com/love for bonus content, audio comments that you can leave, membership information, free coaching, sponsorship details, booking information, and much more. Drop by wisesquirrels.com/love. Check out the link in the episode description below and explore now. Thanks again for listening.
Hey, this is Dr. George Sachs, co-founder of Inflow, a proud sponsor of Wise Squirrels. If you have ADHD, you know how tough it can be to stay on top of, mostly everything. That's why we created Inflow, an app designed by expert clinicians and people with ADHD to help you understand your brain, build habits that actually stick, and feel less alone in the process. Get the support you need with Inflow. Head to wisesquirrels.com/inflow to check it out.
Hey, I'm not sure if you know about this, but I was a speaker and a trainer for Google for nearly 6 years. In addition to this, I've been a coach through a lot of my career, helping small business owners and entrepreneurs improve their businesses. But now with ADHD, I've learned a lot about helping other wise squirrels like me. Check out the link at wisesquirrels.com/coaching and book a free session with me to see if I can help you. I have a feeling I can.